The Iowa Supreme Court has ruled on the long-running legal dispute between former Sioux City Community School Superintendent Paul Gausman, the district, and 4 current and former school board members.
Before we get to the ruling, let's find out how we got here. In April of 2024, a Woodbury County judge ruled on 2 issues stemming from a dispute between Gausman and board members Dan Greenwell, Jan George, Taylor Goodvin, and Bob Michelson. In part of this initial ruling, a Woodbury County judge found that the school board had violated the Open Meetings Act during a January 2022 meeting when it went into closed session for the stated purpose of evaluating Gausman's professional competency. The judge ruled that only former board president Dan Greenwell had not acted in good faith and awarded $500 in damages plus $52,000 in attorney fees to Gausman. Greenwell appealed that ruling, sending it to the Iowa Supreme Court. The other part of the case involves possible violations of the Open Meetings Act for a second closed session that took place in November of 2022. The judge ruled the board didn't violate the state's Open Meetings Act, ruling in favor of the school district, which the school board went into closed session to discuss bribery accusations against Gausman. Gausman appealed that ruling, also sending that to the Iowa Supreme Court.
So that brings us to today's ruling by the Iowa Supreme Court. The High Court heard arguments in this case back in March.
KTIV's Jacqueline Aragon explains today's Iowa Supreme Court decision.
The Iowa Supreme Court handed down a unanimous ruling on Friday, reversing one ruling and upholding another from the Woodbury County District Court judge. The justices ruled that a January 24, 2022 closed session of the Sioux City Community School Board didn't violate Iowa's Open Meetings Act when board members met to discuss then Superintendent Dr. Paul Gausman's job performance. But the justices overturned a separate ruling that a second closed session in November of 22 was legal. That meeting ended with the board publicly voting to file an ethics complaint against Gausman. The decision wipes out an order that the former board president, Dan Greenwell, personally pay more than $52,000 in Gausman's attorney fees. Following the decision, Greenwell says he feels vindicated.
Someone tries to bribe board members, or someone releases confidential closed session information, they can be held to account. And I think the Supreme Court realized that and ruled in their favor.
Gausman also weighing in, saying, in quote, "I am disappointed with the court's decision, and while I disagree with the outcome, I respect the court and its role." Reporting in studio, I'm Jacqueline Aragon, KTIV News 4.
KTIV did reach out to the Sioux City Community School District for comment. A spokesperson referred us to the attorneys representing the district in this case. They haven't gotten back to us with that comment.